Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Maryland Department of Transportation webinar on bicycle pedestrian project funding opportunities. Over the next hour plus, we're going to go through several grants that are administered by the Maryland Department of Transportation and their program manager. Just to let you know, our webinar is being recorded today and it will be available for review once it's posted on our website. Also, we have some handouts available for the Maryland Highway Safety Office, as well as a flyer with a brief description for each of these and vital links to each of the grants that are available today. Later on in our webinar, we will have an opportunity to participate in a couple of polls. We'll ask some questions on input that hopefully you learned today from the poll, and also to help us plan for incoming grants. And then also we'll have a time for question and answer at the end. You can input your questions and answers right in the webinar, and then we will address them that way. So to start off, I'd like to introduce Jeff Dunkel from the Maryland Highway Safety Office, who will talk about his grant program.
Okay, well, thanks very much for having me here today. As Nate said, I'm with the Maryland Highway Safety Office, which is the office that deals with predominantly behavioral types of issues with education and enforcement, which we're going to talk about in a moment. The mission of the Maryland Highway Safety Office is to save lives and prevent injuries by reducing motor vehicle crashes through the comprehensive network of our traffic safety programs. These grants are targeted at changing behaviors, and we use education and enforcement as the methods to do that. And the purpose is to improve traffic safety, for all modes of transportation throughout Maryland. Our money for our federal grants comes through the Transportation Acts, the most recent one, the FAST Act, from Congress, which is funneled to us through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, and that money is directed to our office, which we then are able to administer as grants to grantees. So who are our grantees? Our grantees are agencies that are involved with enforcement and education, and also emergency medical services. Engineering is not in our bailiwick of issues, and I want to point that out because in the last couple of years we sometimes receive grant applications which will include engineering treatments on the roadways, and as much as we would love to support that and try to dovetail our education and enforcement actions with engineering activities, we are not able to fund engineering activities through our office. So therefore we would have to think of it in a way of obtaining additional funding for engineering actions through some of the grants that you'll be hearing about in a moment. And then we also are the keepers of a lot of the data and the data analysis of traffic crashes, and we also issue grants that pertain to trying to improve that. Next. Our grants are structured to support the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. The overall Strategic Highway Safety Plan is a strategic plan to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries. After last year's legislative session, we now have a goal of 0 motor vehicle related fatalities by the year 2030, a very ambitious goal indeed. And we are going to achieve that through the strategic plan that gets revised every 5 years. So we are in the final year of the current plan, and we will be revising it this year and issuing a new plan next year, which will reflect those new objectives. The link that you see here is actually where you can go online to look at our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and I would encourage you to look at the strategies that are listed there under the pedestrian and bicycle emphasis area to get an idea of the kinds of grant funding that we would support and be looking for. We generally, when it's in the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, it is what we want to be able to fund, and it becomes a very eligible project with higher priority. And so anyway, So, okay.
Jeff,
next.
we're just gonna stop for a second. It looks like there's some technical difficulty with the sound. Is that correct? We're getting some notes in that folks can't hear us. Just give us a second. We're gonna pause right here and we're gonna see if we can fix it. Okay, so what could the issue be? It says people can hear
Is this-
you.
is this-
Click to-
Yeah.
People can definitely hear us.
Is this
I
working?
think it's on there.
No, it's on here. It's on the Mondo. Do you want to try calling in and see if you could hear us? Just stand right out there, I
I can
guess.
hear you.
It could be that they don't have
Oh,
computer
people,
audio
okay.
with the
So people still say they can hear us? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's call Jamie then. Jamie, looks like it's okay. It's working.
It's good.
All right, let's just start it back up. All right, folks, it looks like some people, actually the majority of people say that they hear us fine. So you might want to just check the audio settings on your laptop or on your phone to make sure that you're not on mute. And we're just going to continue with our webinar. Thank you.
Next slide. Okay, so again, I would encourage you to visit that website that was on that slide to get a sense of what the strategies are for all the emphasis areas, not just, let me take one step back. The Strategic Highway Safety Plan focuses activities on what we now have as 6 emphasis areas, which include aggressive driving, distracted driving, impaired driving, occupant protection, and then the one that's the focus of today's webinar, pedestrian and bicycle safety. There's a 6th one of infrastructure, but again, that's an area that we don't provide grants for, so I will move on from that. Okay, on this slide here, the question is who can apply for grants? It must be a nonprofit organization, government agency, regional authority. In fact, we issue grants to our 2 regional municipal planning organizations in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. And we've also issued grants as well to Hagerstown. We issue grants to law enforcement agencies and then also institutes of higher learning, as well as hospitals, which can be under the umbrella of the public health, emergency services. Next. We're looking to fund projects that are basically tried and true. I want to point out that there is a document that NHTSA puts out. There's a link to it here called Countermeasures That Work. And it isn't that those are the only things that will be funded, but it gives you a toolbox of activities in education and enforcement that have been shown to have positive impact. And so if it is in this toolbox, then it's easy for us to justify funding these requests, these grant requests. We also will take on new innovative and pilot projects, especially if they can show benefit for the entire state and not just one particular jurisdiction. And an example of that was we funded the pilot project for having a 3-foot violation detector on bicycles of the bike patrols of Anne Arundel County to basically try to enforce the 3-foot rule for passing bicycles. So, and that was, we were real happy to be able to do that a year ago. We also, fund other projects, but they need to be related to the strategies in the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So that's why I was encouraging you all to take a look at that. There's a 2-page section that kind of gives the strategies of what we're doing under the bike ped emphasis area. Next. One of the big ticket items of what we provide funding for are law enforcement activities, which includes things like crosswalk enforcement details, sometimes called stings, but we don't like to call them that. Also, activities of overtime funding, especially when things like, for instance, impaired driving, we'll have DUI checkpoints and things like that we fund. That's a lot of our funding goes to the police departments. We actually probably have one of the biggest war chests. We have about $12 million worth of highway safety grants that we've issued last year. I will say that the bike ped portion of that was about 1.3 million. So clearly, there's a lot of money going to other groups like the law enforcement operations. Next. So the how to apply if you're interested is to basically do it online. The link here would bring you into what we call our GPS system. That is not standing for mapping systems, but rather it actually stands for Grants for Projects and Safety. And if you go online and go in there, it's a really very user-friendly online system to apply for the grants. But to get access to it, you have to apply as a new user. When you try to sign on, you click on the new user button, and what'll happen is that will send an email to the person who administers the program there, the computer system, and they will give you access and approval to get into the system. The funding for federal funds are from October 1st through September 30th of next year. I want to point out, though, that we also do administer under the Ped Bike program quite a lot of state money as well. We have additional monies that we provide from the state, which has a different deadline of July. Of money would be released on July 1st, and then we would have to have the projects completed by June 30th. The deadline for either federal or state funding projects is quick. This is why I'm really pleased to be able to be here today to tell you that this is kind of the last week to actually prepare a grant request for us, because we have to have the submission by March 2nd next week. So anyway, so that's and then we go through a whole process of reviewing those. We may be in touch to try to negotiate or to maybe talk about the scope, maybe try to modify that a little bit through some interaction. And then we generally go through an approval process from mid-April to the beginning of May, where we will reach some kind of tentative decision. And then these will be announced by the governor at some point when they are finally approved. Next. I want to leave you with these contacts. We have essentially two groups in our office. Well, actually three groups when you include law enforcement, but we have an outreach group which works. They're divided by the regions of the state, and I've given you the four contacts there. So if there are any jurisdictions from, whether they're from the central region, which is basically Arizona, Baltimore, or the western region, or eastern shore, or Mike Baumgartner is working in the southern region, as well as Prince George's in Montgomery County. These are folks that can issue grants specific to the local jurisdictions. If there are larger grants that are dealing with more statewide types of issues, then that would fall under my responsibilities. I am the statewide pedestrian bicycle safety program manager, so I deal with the grants that are larger in scope. But those also include the regional education programs of Street Smart and most recently Look Alive in Baltimore. What I would encourage you to do is to contact me, contact one of the other regional partners, outreach partners, and just discuss your grant and get some feedback on how you might make that a successful grant application. And then they will also become your champion in the office to help kind of make sure it gets into the system properly and can be reviewed for approval. Okay, so that's pretty much my portion of the presentation.
Thanks, Jeff. Cheryl could not join us today, so covering the recreational trails program today will be Christy Bernal.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I will be covering the recreational trails program for Cheryl. She was unable to make it today. So the recreational trails program, it really is to support the maintenance and development of motorized and non-motorized recreational land and water trails in Maryland. So the average award for these projects that are submitted the average award of these projects are around $50,000. The Rec Trails program receives about $1 million in federal funds to award annually. And these recreational trails projects are really for hiking, mountain biking, kayaking, equestrian, cross-county skiing, and snow machine and all-terrain vehicles. This is federal funding, so you are looking at an 80-20 split. So federal funds would be matched for the 80% and 20% in kind or cash would also be required. It is a reimbursement based only, so that you're looking at the project sponsor paying for the entire project and being reimbursed up to the 80%. It can be awarded to a government entity or a nonprofit. If you are interested in applying for a Rec Trails award, you do need to set up a site visit prior to submission, and Cheryl will work with you in order to come out to do a walkthrough. The grant is for the completion of the project scope. It is not a lump sum payment. So the eligible trail project activities, you're looking for construction of new trails, maintenance and restoration, acquisition of easements, and development and rehabilitation of trail sites and trailhead facilities. A lot of the projects that for Rec Trails, we are really looking for to provide the missing links to complete the existing trail systems, to construct new trails, to add to a trail system, improve access to the land and water trails, really to provide for redesign, reconstruction, and relocation. You can use to involve the youth in the construction and maintenance of trails, and I think that is also, you can also use that for your in-kind for your 20% match. You also have the opportunity to expand for motorized vehicle users and enhance access for people with disabilities. So if you have any questions, if you have a potential project that you want to talk about with Cheryl, there's her contact information. And like I said, she would be more than happy to talk with you, set up a site visit, and come out and take a look at the area with you. The one thing that you definitely want to keep in mind if you are submitting for an application is that you are just very detailed with your project description, that you are including any maps, and that you are building a realistic budget for your projects. And so now I'll go ahead and jump on over to the Transportation Alternatives Program. So for this program, it is, again, federal funding. The state receives a portion of the federal designation from Federal Highway for the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, so the FAST Act. The funds that we receive for the state of Maryland are divvied up between the metropolitan planning organizations, and then the remaining of that is actually obligated to the state. So the purpose of the TA program is really to expand travel options. You're looking for community-based activities that expand travel options, improve transportation experience, improve the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, and reduce traffic congestion. The program eligibility for this is you need to be sponsored or co-sponsored by an eligible agency. It needs to be related to a surface transportation system, and you need to meet one of the 9 eligible categories that are listed in the federal legislation. If you have any questions regarding what category, we can definitely have a conversation to see which one would be the best fit. You're looking at to be able to provide at least a 20% cash match. Funding would be available for planning, design, and construction. So for similar to last year, and I think this kind of took, with the new application, there was a little bit of some additional clarity that we definitely want to point out for this year's application. So you are able to apply for design funding or construction funding. If we're doing planning, there'll be an option on the application for other. But for the design funding, you want to make sure that you have concept plans, and those concept plans are plan level drawings demonstrating the alignment of the projects, the limits of disturbance, right-of-way impacts, we would like for you to demonstrate that there has been contact with the affected property owners, and of course, rough cost and material needs and estimates. We are not doing design and construction funding, so that's why you have the design versus construction. If you are coming in for construction funding this year, we are asking that at a minimum you submit at least a 30% design plan. It's per SHA, our checklist and guidance. That information is on our website. If you're having any issues finding it, I can definitely forward that information to you. We are looking for design plans that are beyond 30%. The closer you are to being construction ready, that is what we're really looking to see for the construction funding. So with the TAP program, the responsibilities for the project sponsor is really to design and manage and construct the project. SHA is really there to help you to adhere to all milestones and make sure that you're meeting all the state and federal requirements. As many of you know, that once you receive a dollar of federal funding, there are lots and lots of obstacles and check boxes that need to be completed in order to make sure that you're staying within the federal requirements. So that is really what we're here to help you with. You want to make sure that you're providing monthly project reports and invoices, and the project sponsor would be responsible for the maintenance activity for the lifespan of the project. Also, you would be responsible for the 20% cash match. So this slide basically shows the 9 eligible categories. Again, if you have any questions regarding what your project may be within, which category it may fall under, we can definitely talk about it and I can help assist you with that. So the next program that I manage is the Safe Routes to School program. So this program is really to enable and encourage children with disabilities to walk and bicycle to school. It's really to make it safer for kids to get to and from, help create a new healthy and active lifestyle. This program is really to facilitate the planning and development and implementation of projects to improve the safety and reduce traffic within a 2-mile radius of the schools, of elementary and middle school. So the eligible activities for Safe Routes to School, you are looking for engineering, so design and construction. This one is a little different. So than the TA, you will still need to do either design or construction. You wouldn't receive funding for design and construction. And that is really just to make sure that once we have the design portion completed, that we have accurate costs once it's moving forward to construction. One of the other eligible activities would be education. So if you're looking to do a seminar with the kids, like a bike rodeo, you could do that with the education piece. There's encouragement, enforcement as well. So if you're looking for paying overtime for law enforcement to help with the with the traffic enforcement within the school, that is what would be eligible for the enforcement. We would also pay for crossing guard training. We would not pay for the day-to-day payroll of a crossing guard, but we would definitely pay for their training. Again, for sponsor requirements, you're looking at a 20% cash match for the program. The real difference with the Safe Routes to School program is that it needs to benefit an elementary or middle school. It's really benefiting the students that are walking and biking. You need to make sure that the school is participating and that any enhancements are completed within a 2-mile radius of the school. And this is just to show you, so we're updating our application again. These are just a couple of screenshots of what you can expect to see when you log in, once you create your account and log in for the new applications. We're accepting applications from April 15th through May 15th. The applications, again, we're trying to get it as friendly and user-friendly as possible. So it's really streamlining questions using drop-down lists and the ability to upload attachments. The same with the rec trails, the transportation alternatives, and Safe Routes to School. You want to make sure that you're including detailed maps, a detailed budget cost estimates as possible, and plans, so we can have an accurate picture of what the project is that you're looking to do. And here we have just a few resources for you. Again, it's on our website. If you have any problems finding our information, we can definitely send it to you. There's also the guidance for the local public agencies and subrecipient of federal funds. This is a really good information guide for existing and any new newcomers to the TA and Safe Routes to School programs. This provides a lot of information of what some of your day-to-day requirements will be, from the design portion all the way to the construction and closeout of the projects. And so just really quick, I'll touch upon the Federal Lands Access Program. That's another program that I manage. The Federal Lands is really, it's the requirement is the eligible facility must be associated with public highway, road, bridge, trail, or transit system that is located on or adjacent to provide access to federal lands. Again, it's federal funds, so you're looking at an 80-20 split. So there is a 20% cash match. The applicant must own the facility. Currently, for the FLAT program, I do not have their next call for application. They just completed it this past fall, so I'm waiting to see when the new dates are going to be for this coming fall. So that's more information to come as that becomes available. But if you do believe you have a project that would qualify for the Federal Lands Access Program, definitely give me a call so I can keep you on the radar when I have notice for the funding opportunity. And so the eligible activities, you're looking for planning, engineering, maintenance, rehab, construction, and operation and maintenance of transit facilities. So the facilities, you're looking at parking areas, scenic easements, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, environmental mitigation, and construction and reconstruction of road and rest areas. So if you have any questions, if you want to discuss a potential project, if you're unsure of what your next steps are, please, there's my contact information. Don't hesitate to give me a call or to email me. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We appreciate everybody that's putting in their questions, and we'll get to them when we're all finished. So my name is Nate Evans. I'm the Bikeways Program Manager here at the Department of Transportation in the Secretary's Office. To give a brief overview on the Bikeways program, what's eligible, what's changed, and we'll go from there. So the Bikeways program was developed to support the development of the Maryland's bicycle network in eligible areas. The program is being used to fund design and construction projects. Traditionally, there's been about a $2 million a year award or allotment for the program. This year, it's been bumped up to $3.8 million. And it's open to local governments, nonprofit organizations, state agencies, federal agencies, and metropolitan planning organizations. So some of the things that have changed over the past year or so is the number one thing was that the Governor Hogan issued that the program would experience a $3.8 million allotment over this year and next year. This was done in honor of Kim Lampier, who was a longtime bicycle advocate here in Maryland. So now that we've got additional funding to do bicycle projects, we're also going to be looking for higher quality projects. In the past, we were we would fund traffic calming projects and sharrows, but I think this year with the amount of money that we have, we're definitely looking for higher quality projects, so no sharrows, please. Another change that we've instituted is that we've instituted a letter or an email of intent. It's not mandatory, but it's highly encouraged. And the letter of intent is to kind of get the conversation started as to what you're thinking about with your project. Just let us know. The instructions for the letter of intent are on our Bikeways website. And if you just want to let us know the title, description, the physical limits of the project, what your total project estimate is, what you're anticipating requesting Bikeways funding amount, and just a follow-up contact so we can make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Another change that we've got this year is that bike share projects are no longer going to be eligible. This is a big change in the past, but we feel that with the change in the business models for multi-share mobility, that the private sector really is taking the lead on a lot of the expenses for bike share projects. So we're going to let that continue to happen. There's still a lot of great resources out there, especially at the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. They hold a biannual meeting on micromobility and shared mobility services. If you're interested in still pursuing bike share, I recommend participating in one of those events. Also, we're no longer going to have indirect expenses. And just like the recreational trails and the transportation alternatives, the Bikeways also will have a new application portal. So different kinds of projects that you can fund through Bikeways are the design projects. This can fund any level of design, starting from a feasibility study all the way through 100% design. And this is like a perfect first step if you have a project identified in a local master plan that you want to get done, but it's just a line on a map. The design projects in the Bikeways program enables you to do the feasibility study and then also prepare for continued design for those projects. It's also a great start to help those projects go from just being in the master plan to being designed, and then can ultimately hopefully apply for TAP funding. So we also fund construction projects. These are projects that are going to be greater than $100,000, and we can fund any level of construction, whether it's signing and marking on a road to full-on shared use path construction. And the bicycle construction projects must have a bicycle focus. It can't just be for streetscapes and sidewalk projects, but definitely have that focus on bicycle transportation access. Minor retrofits are another category that we have. The cap on these awards are $100,000. But these can be used to do anything from upgrading storm grates to providing bicycle parking, and also to install automated bicycle counters. So some important information is that we know that our application will be due on May 22nd. We're hoping to have it open on April 15th. We wanted to make it May 22nd is the deadline date instead of May 15th, because we know how many people are managing both a bike to work day and the Bikeways application. So we didn't want to put those on the same day. Check out our website for the geographic eligibility criteria for each of your projects. We've got that spelled out really well. But also, we also make it flexible so that you can, we can cover just about any project that you're coming with us. Locals will provide 20% of the match, and Bikeways will cover 80% of the remaining project costs. Design projects need to be completed within 2 years, but construction projects have a 3-year lifespan. And it's highly recommended that you get an independent project cost estimate before applying. If you've got consultants on board that can give you a cost estimate for those projects, we recommend that you get those before applying so that you know just what exactly you're going to be applying for in funding. So additionally, on our website, we have some new guidelines as to what we expect to see in applications for design and construction. And then also what kind of deliverables we'll also see once that project's complete. All of that information is available on our website. If you're interested in getting some technical assistance, a site visit, or have any questions, feel free to contact me via email or by phone. And now for our last grant program of the day, Jamie McKay is going to talk about the Statewide Transit Innovation Grant.
Although I would be happy to have Christy speak about my project too. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie McKay. I am at the M.MTA Office of Planning, and I am the Statewide Transit Information Grant Program, Statewide Transit Innovation Grant Program Manager. The M.MTA Statewide Transit Innovation Grant is a competitive grant program that supports local efforts to improve local transit reliability, improve access and connections to activity centers, and improve transit mobility options. So the program will fund cost-effective public transportation projects that reduce delays for people and goods and improve connectivity between regional and economic population centers. Projects may incorporate bus, rail, or other transit modes. And M.MTA is working with transit agencies and local government partners across Maryland to create better connections through innovative ideas. Some of the project activities that are supported by this program are listed below, but these are just examples. We always encourage our local partners to be as innovative as possible and provide us with a project that will better suit their needs. For example, we have corridor assessments, feasibility studies, bus rapid transit, HOV lanes for bus or bus lanes, bus and rail stations, TSP and Q jumps, comprehensive sign and bus stop upgrade programs, first mile or last mile connections through transit, mobility hubs and commuter parking, and more. Eligible applicants include Maryland local governments, including county governments and municipalities, and locally operated transit providers. The Statewide Transit Innovation Grant Program funding match is computed on the basis of total project costs. So what that means is that matching funds must account for at least 20% of the total project cost, with at least half of the match or 10% of the total as a direct contribution from the project applicant, whether that's cash match or in-kind match. So the Statewide Transit Innovation Grant, introduced in 2018, will have outreach conducted throughout the spring, with the application period to open in May and conclude on June 25th. Additional information will be posted shortly on our website at mta.maryland, spelled out, .gov/grants. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to assist you. My contact information is at the bottom. Thank you.
So here's a quick synopsis of all the MDOT grant managers with their contact information. This PowerPoint will be posted on our website with all the active links and contact information so that you can have an easier time getting to them. Now we're gonna open up our polls. We've got 5 quick questions that you can participate in. So with our first poll, we want to know what type of grant are you interested in applying for?
Cool. At least I'm not Jeff.
Okay, we'll have about 5 seconds left for polling. Okay. Okay, it looks like most folks are looking for bikeways, 29% with TAP and safe routes, 24% with Rec Trails, 9% with STIG, and 3% for Maryland Highway Safety Office.
Can I put in a plug here?
Sure.
Okay, remember, we're the ones with $12 million floating around, so, yeah. And you probably did note there was some overlap there, you know, Christy brought up the point that, you know, Safe Routes to Schools has funding for education type of activities. So, you know, you might want to consider multiple places to apply, so.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. For our next poll question, we'd like to know what type of project are you looking to fund? Feasibility study, design, construction, enforcement, or something else? Okay, just a few more seconds and we'll close the poll. Looks like feasibility study and preliminary design take the cake with 38, just barely inching out construction. Followed by advanced design, 11%, and enforcement or something else at 7%. Okay, for our next question, we'd like to know what part of Maryland is your project being implemented in? Okay, just a couple more seconds. So Central Maryland is more than half of the respondents, followed by the Eastern Shore with 21%, Western Maryland with 14%, Southern Maryland 11%, and statewide at 4%. Okay. And our next question will be, how much funding are you seeking for your project? Okay, just a couple more seconds for polling. Pretty good range for 25,000 to 100,000 at 45%. 100,000 to 250,000, 27%. And more than 250,000 at 23%. Okay. I think we have one more question. Do you intend to follow up with one of the grant managers after this webinar before applying? Okay, just a couple more seconds for polling. What's good to know, we'll be busy over the next few weeks with 54% of respondents saying yes, 41 probably, which is a good sign, and 1% saying that they already have and haven't. Well, thank you everybody for your participation in the polls and the webinar. Now we're going to get to a few of your questions that you've been typing in. We'll start from the top. Just a reminder, if you have any more questions, feel free to Type them in and we will get to them in turn. Tara asked if there was a map of the regions available for the Maryland Highway Safety Office.
Sarah, that was a great question, because as I described the regions, I thought, boy, I should put a map in here. Anyways, absolutely. And what we'll do is, Nate, we can provide that to you with documents, or should I have them contact me if they want it?
Yeah, send it to me and we'll post them on the website.
Okay, so I'll send Nate the map of our regions, and in that map, we also have the contacts correlating with those regions. So, yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Jeff. Our Kevin asked, will the PowerPoint presentation be available? Yeah, we're going to include that on our website later on this week with all the links and the information you need. Nicole asked, do the schools for the Safe Routes to School grant need to be public schools?
No, they do not have to be public schools. We have worked with charter schools in the past. I don't recall if we've had any private schools apply. Just as long as they're benefiting the, from kindergarten to 8th grade, so elementary and middle school.
Okay, thanks, Christy. Sarah asked, in the instance where a federal grant is offered but requires a 20% grant, are any other sources ineligible as a match? If you have a seed grant for design for 30% plans, can that be our 20% match?
I think that's for me.
I think that's for Christy.
I would need to know what the seed fund grant is.
That is from the Department of Housing and Community Development. They offered that.
So
It's state money, but we might need to see the source on that if there is federal money involved.
okay, yeah, that's what I would need some additional information regarding the seed fund grant to see if it would be eligible, because typically federal cannot be used as match for another federal grant.
We will get back to you on that one, Sarah. But thanks for the question. Patrick asked for TA projects, is the time requirements are based on kickoff meetings, but grant agreements can also often take a long time, limiting ability to accomplish the project goals in time. Can the deadlines be shifted to start with the signing of the grant agreement, or can the kickoff be delayed until the grant agreement is signed so the timeline is more realistic?
Patrick, that's a great question. We can definitely have a conversation to make sure that the timelines are a little more in tune to your project schedule.
Thanks, Christy. Alex asks, are studies to determine route alignment funded under the Bikeways program? That's correct, Alex. You can use a design grant to do a feasibility study on what kind of route you'd like to determine. And yeah, just apply for a design grant under Bikeways. We can make that happen. Jim asks, is the deadline for rec trail submission March 2nd?
So Jim, Cheryl unfortunately is not here. If you wanna shoot myself or Cheryl an email, we can definitely respond to you. I believe the March 2nd is for her off-cycle application. She's doing the regular application should be open within the April-May timeframe.
Can we provide the link to the site where the slideshow will be posted? Yes, if you registered, we will email everyone out the link. And then we also may be able to send an email out the presentation, but I think we'll just email the link instead. That'll be better. Patrick asked, can applicants apply for Bikeways and TA grants for the same project, trying to use state Bikeways dollars to provide part of the match to federal TA funding? Yes, you can. You can definitely use Bikeways funding since it's 100% state money. You can use that as your match for the federal TA grants. See, Perry asked, I have a historic bridge. I need 12 million to repair. Who defines the cost of demolition used to establish the maximum grant amount? Is there any other program eligible to withdraw from demolition? It'd be very expensive because our right of way is at the toe of the bridge. Well, that's a good question, Perry. I don't think any of us in the room have a good answer for that one. I believe that this would be some type of construction project. We might need a little bit more information about the bridge and where it's located and who actually owns it. We can reach out to you after the webinar, Perry, and see if we can help steer you in the right direction on that. How many respondents were part of the quick poll? For each one, they varied, but we had about 71% to 80% of the people that participated in the webinar that replied to the quick polls. Dan asked for TAP, more details on restoration of historic structures option. I found reference that funding is only available up to equivalent of demolition costs. How is the value calculated? Specific project is Maryland Historic Trust designated bridge that currently hosts recreation instead of vehicular traffic. It sounds like Dan might have tried to answer some of Perry's questions on that one. Is the time frame for doing feasibility studies the same as design? Yes, about 2 years. Any kind of feasibility study on the Bikeways program is going to adhere to most of the stipulations under a design project for Bikeways. Clinton asked, do any of these grants fund equipment for trails? Yes, Recreational Trails Program will fund maintenance and trail construction equipment.
Clint, you definitely want to reach out to Cheryl. We just want to make sure that it's still an eligible item and that it's meeting the Buy America requirements.
Good points. Thanks, Christy. Also, can Rec Trails grants be utilized to put in launches for canoes and kayaks? And I believe they are. But again, let's make sure that Cheryl knows about it and that she can steer you in the right direction on that. Here's a good question. If we get an independent cost estimate before applying, is the engineer excluded from subsequent bidding? That would be at the discretion of your county's procurement laws. More often than not, this does not exclude engineers from bidding on a project that they've already done the bidding for. But again, check with your local procurement office to make sure that that is legit. So another question is, can you stack grants? For example, a multi-user trail that is funded through a bikeway grant and a transportation alternative grants? Yes, you can. Here's a good question. Will the Bikeways program fund a bicycle master plan? That is one of the excluded projects from the Bikeways program in that we do not fund bicycle master plans. If you have like an area plan that might extend beyond the jurisdictions to make it more of a regional plan, that can be looked upon a little bit more favorably. But bicycle master plans for a singular jurisdiction are an ineligible project. Yeah. And one other question is how many people listened today? We had 184 people registered and we had 100 people participate. And what is the deadline for the Trails grant?
So for the Rec Trails grant, we need to double check with Cheryl. because that should be in May as well. And that will be up on her website.
That brings us to the end of the questions that we've had. Oh, again, I want to thank everybody for participating in our webinar today. We hope that it was good information for you all to make decisions on projects that you're looking to put forward to grants. We'll post this presentation and additional information on our website, and email out everyone who participated a link there too. With that, I'd like to close us out today, and thanks again, everybody, for participating. Thank you.